Oh, hello. Yeah, I wanted to I've been meaning to do this, do some quotes or just read bits that notes that I made. Some of them might be direct quotes, but as in usual fashion, I forgot to say which is actually quoting direct. So just assume, unless I say otherwise, that I'm quoting or paraphrasing from this book, which is Women and Girls with Autism Spectrum Disorder, and it was one of the first that I ever read. I gave it to my sister, and then I read it, and we were both diagnosed by Axia, and Sarah Hendrickx apparently used to work there. I don't know if she still does, but so yeah, so it's quite, anyway, so I'm just probably do a few of these, but she looked at, or she was talking about games and that involve pretense and imagination, and that autistic boys showed virtually no interest, whereas autistic girls were very much engaged in imaginary play. Imagination, usually considered to be an area of difficulty in individuals with autism, may not be affected in the same way in girls as it is in boys, with girls often retreating into fantasy worlds as respite from the stress of being in the real one. Now, I've already done a blog about fantasy worlds and something called maladaptive daydreaming. I was interviewing my sister off camera, but that is very fantasy. That's exactly what we did, escaped into fantasy worlds. So that's why I made a note of it. And so yeah, she goes on to say it's interesting that many women had to suggest autism to their clinicians in order for it to be pursued, rather than clinicians noticing their autistic traits. That was from 2014, that particular observation. And Gould and Ashton Smith in 2011 outline a number of key differences in autistic features between girls and boys, and recommend a broader view of the diagnostic classification to be taken by clinicians. Again, items such as increased interest in reading fiction and immersing themselves in fantasy worlds with set rules that can be followed, or mentioned as needing special consideration. Again, I probably made a note of that because I thought, yeah, that really resonates with me. Then it says, there's an almost universal belief that early diagnosis is a good thing, and certainly that seems to be the case in this day and age where understanding is increasing and appropriate support is possible. However, the author, Sarah Hendrickx, have discovered this with some late diagnosed autistic women friends and colleagues, and for us the benefits of early diagnosis are not so clear. Individually, we had to come to the same conclusion. This early diagnosis would have meant well-meaning limitations being placed on us by ourselves and those around us, families and teachers, seeking to protect us from undue stress. So that's an interesting take. She's actually saying having an early diagnosis, there is mostly it's absolutely better to have that because the prognosis, outcome is better. But from the point of view of, perhaps having too many restrictions, she's saying, well, let me see what she goes on to say. As all of us have significant mental health issues, predominantly anxiety disorders, from pushing ourselves in a world that gave us no concessions, but each of us feels that we have achieved more because of this. In our cases, we feel that the label would not have aided our independence. This is our experience coming from a place where no one knew or understood. Or bloody-minded determination to fit in at any cost, paid off in terms of our independence, but sometimes at the price of a mental and physical health. Fortunately, girls and young women today have awareness on their side, and for them, early diagnosis is a positive outcome, but may protect them from some of the ancillary mental health issues experienced by older women. The support is there for them. Many of the young women I'm meeting in colleges around the country, that's when she says it's her saying that, where I work, are comfortable with their autism. It's no big deal. They've had it forever. They don't want to talk about it. They just want to get on with it. It's a totally different experience to the late diagnosed adult women coming to the realisation for this first time. We want to talk about it, dissect it, analyse it. Benefits for adults diagnosed with autism include being able to access practical support, being taken more seriously by service providers. For many, two of the best things about receiving a diagnosis are the self-knowledge and sense of relief, which can improve self-esteem and confidence, but come from knowing that there was a reason for why they felt so different and for all the challenges they had faced. Once the diagnosis of autism has been confirmed, the process of deciding who and how to tell other people begins. Some find that becoming an advocate for autism is a role that they feel comfortable with, celebrating their own or their child's unique self and sharing their knowledge to increase understanding in others. Lorraine Holiday Willie is an advocate of full disclosure and writes a chapter on it in her book, Pretending to be Normal, 2014, which beautifully portrays the mind of a woman with autism, a must-read for all clinicians and practitioners. Then again, they go on to talk about core behaviour. She goes on to talk about core behaviour associated with autism, that there is a qualitative difference between male lining up behaviour and female behaviour. The girls' activities generally involve people rather than objects. These people may be fictional characters or only their voices are heard in the case of music, but the girls interested in them, it's all people-based rather than purely object-based, like dinosaurs and buses, etc. The girls' behaviour also all involves words and communication on some level. Given the early and advanced speech mentioned by many interviewed, there does appear to be some desire for communication, language or words by these girls at an early age, even if the purpose and intuitive understanding of the social rules are not necessarily present. Surely it is no coincidence that despite reported numbers of women with autism being significantly lower than those of men, many of the most established and prolific authors in autism, particularly those telling their own story, are women. Perhaps women with autism have an innate drive to communicate. And I know she says with autism rather than autistic often, but I'm just quoting here. But I obviously made a note of that because I'm an author, a woman author, and words mean, and the fantasy worlds and all that. Anyway, I'm going to read some more, perhaps in another one, because this is a bit longer than I expected. So thank you. Anyway, bye bye.